Okay, hi everybody. This is task number 7 of the weekly tasks for the directing unit. This is the presentation about my favorite director. And obviously first this was meant to be a group task, but I wasn't assigned a group. So I've taken it upon myself to record it on my own. So if I just start screen sharing here. Might take a second. I'll give it a while. Okay, yeah, here we are. My favorite director by Harry Tugby. Obviously, there's probably a lot of go-to ones people talk about, like Tarantino, Christopher Nolan. I mean, we are in film school, so those are very common ones. Scorsese as well. But I've gone for a little bit of an unconventional answer for this one. I've gone for Kevin Smith is my favorite director, and here's a few reasons why. He revolutionized American independent film with his first feature film, Clerks, which is one of my all-time favorites. Another thing I really like about him is he writes and directs all of his projects himself. He shies away from studio involvement in order to maintain creative control and make the movie he wants to make. He was one of the first directors to have his film share a cinematic universe, way before Marvel or DC or anyone was doing it, really, with his View Askew universe, he called it. And he gave Stan Lee cameos in his film before it was cool to do so. Kevin Smith has always been about pop culture, way before it was big, way before it was popular to do so. So it was such a niche thing, and he used to incorporate it in all his films, even though it didn't appeal to a lot of people, which is something I really admire about him. Come back. List of Kevin Smith films. So obviously in '94 we had Clerks, which was his first one, and as you can see here, there's a lot of them. There's Mallrats, Chasing Amy, Dog. I won't read out all of them. Okay, I'll give you a while to read all of that. But as you can see, he's been working for nearly 2 decades now, which is really impressive. There's a lot of longevity for a man who some people just say he makes stoner films, which I disagree with, really. Yeah, the View Askew universe, as I mentioned earlier. The View Askew universe is a name given to the cinematic universe shared by some of Smith's films. It's named after his production company, which he founded when he made Clerks, called View Askew Productions. It started 14 years before the MCU had that idea. The films included in this series are the Clerks series, so Clerks 1 and 2, Jay and Silent Bob series, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, and Dogma. And what happens in the View Askew universe is a lot of the characters are shared. It's all set in the same universe, basically. All the characters are shared. A lot of the actors play the same roles as they do in other ones. And yeah, and there's the little logo with the animated Jay and Silent Bob. So that's Kevin Smith, and then that's his friend Jason Mewes, who plays Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. And my favorite Kevin Smith film, as previously mentioned, was Clerks from 1994. Here we have some screenshots from it. There's Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson, who play Dante and Randall, who were the clerks that I mentioned in the title. And there's Kevin Smith and Jason Mewes, who are Jay and Silent Bob. This was their first appearance in anything. And again, I just think it speaks to the longevity of Kevin Smith, that he's introduced these two like silly characters, one might call it, and here we are still talking about them in the year 2021, which is really impressive. So yeah, it was Smith's first film, obviously, made on a shoestring budget of only $27,000, shot entirely in the convenience store where Smith worked at the time. So what would actually happen was, so he'd work there in the day as a clerk, and then after it shut down, he'd bring everyone in. They'd film from about 10 p.m. to about 6 a.m. the next day, and then he just gets straight back to work. And this filming schedule took about 3 weeks. Smith was really dedicated to his craft in that case. Yeah, another thing is, sorry, excuse me. Because of the harsh lighting in the convenience store, Smith had to lower the shutters at the front of the store every time and work that into the script. And that's how we ended up with the somebody stuck gum in the locks joke, if you've seen the film. He couldn't afford any big name actors, so he cast his friends and himself in the leading roles. He's known Jason Mewes there, who plays Jay, pretty much his whole life, and he just went, "Wow, someone should put you in a film," and then he did. I believe he knew Jeff Anderson and Brian O'Halloran in high school, and they were both trying to make it as theatrical actors. So he introduced them into the story as well. Originally, Kevin Smith was meant to play Anderson's character of Randall, but he couldn't remember all the lines. So that's when he decided to write the character of Silent Bob, a man who just kind of sits there and has one line in the whole film. And also the film shot entirely in black and white. Smith said in interviews this is to sort of portray like we're watching the security footage from the Quick Stop, which is the convenience store that they work in, when in reality I think it was more a budgetary constraint, but it's still a nice idea in my opinion. Moving on to Smith's ideology, like how he makes his films and things like that. Smith's entire career is based on taking risks and never getting comfortable in his work. Clerks was financed off of maxed out credit cards entirely. So Smith was ready to completely ruin his credit score to make this film. And this is a risk that paid off. As I said previously, it was $27,000 that the film cost to make. So that'd be a lot of money being debt in if this film failed. Smith makes films for himself and the people that enjoy them. Again, this is linking back to him really shying away from big studio involvement. I read in an interview with him once that when it came to making Chasing Amy, they offered him $2.5 million to make it, but he had to change the cast. But he said, "No, I want Ben Affleck to be in it," and this was before Ben Affleck was big. So he compromised and made the film for just $250,000 instead. So he's really willing to compromise on budget to keep his like directorial vision intact, and that's something I really admire about him. There's not really any massively impressive camera work or editing in a lot of the View Askew universe films, or any of Smith's films for that matter. A lot of the enjoyment comes from the dialogue and the interaction between the characters who we know and love. And I think that's really a testament to Smith's writing and how skilled he is really. In Clerks, a lot of the characters, so Dante, Randall, Jay, and I guess Silent Bob to some degree, they're all based on real people that Kevin knew in real life. So it was probably quite easy for him to write dialogue between them because he was just recording what people had said and changing it into a medium where people were interested to watch it. Some other notable points about Smith and his career. As I previously stated, he was referencing comic books and other type of nerd pop culture way before it became popular to do so, and was still quite a niche thing. Sorry. In Mallrats, which is Smith's second feature film, Stan Lee actually plays a titular character in the mall, and this was again way before any Marvel films had been made. People mostly knew Marvel. They'd hear Marvel and just think, "Oh, Spider-Man, nerd comics," and not really give much more to it. It wasn't the global phenomenon we see it is today. Also, we see he gave Ben Affleck and Matt Damon some of the first roles in their career. As I was saying earlier, Ben Affleck starred in Chasing Amy in '96, and Affleck and Matt Damon, way before they did Good Will Hunting or anything of that caliber, they were in Dogma in 2001, which is one of Smith's best films, I think. And again, in the View Askew universe, to go back to it, he uses the same close-knit group of actors for a lot of his projects. Even if he doesn't have a role for them, really, Brian O'Halloran, who plays Dante in Clerks, has nearly been in every single one of Smith's films, whether it just be a cameo or a callback to another film. He always makes room for him in there. And something else I noted down was he made the Jay and Silent Bob reboot in 2019 as a reward to Jason Mewes, who's Jay, for going to rehab and getting himself clean of his drug addiction, which is, again, something else I really admire. Of course, Jason Mewes is his lifelong friend, and for him to look out for him like that is great. And just to go back to Jay and Silent Bob reboot, this thing is like, I'd compare it to the Avengers Endgame of the View Askew universe. It's like every single, if you haven't seen any of the View Askew universe films, there will be a joke you miss. It's just it's very fan servicey, but if you're a fan of these films like I am, it's just sensational. And for Kevin Smith to stick with Jason Mewes, who's struggled with drug addiction his whole life, and to keep putting him in films and keep supporting him through this and eventually getting him clean is just, I think it's a testament to the sort of man that he is, that he's dedicated to his friends and willing to help them out in certain situations. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for watching and listening.